There are dozens of viable perks in Fallout 76, and some bring much more value to your build than others. Let me show you my top 10 damage perks that can improve any build. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Fallout 76 video. In this guide, I will go over the strongest damage perks we have right now with Update 26, which can fit and boost whatever build you may have really. No magic involved, I promise. I will obviously exclude most weapon perks and action target perks, such as sneak ones. Instead, I will focus on versatile damage perks that can boost your damage regardless of your build. But before we get to the perk list, let me introduce you to the new Opera GX for Windows, the very first gaming browser which gives you full control. Besides multiple app integrations such as Discord and Twitch, this browser allows you to play music directly from your Spotify, Apple, and YouTube accounts. You can also monitor and limit your internet consumption, unwanted tabs, and even your RAM and CPU. Wow! GX also comes with its own cleaner and the usual extensions tab for total customization. Before the sponsor contact, I had no idea this app even existed, and I must confess, I got quite impressed with all the tools and customization options. Even the user-friendly interface, it's so easy to learn, and there's so many things all together in one single place, and all of them are so useful. It even tracks new game releases and free weekends for all platforms. If you wish to check it out, the official link is right below the video. Now back to the guide, let's improve your damage output, shall we? Let's start at the bottom of the list with the legendary explosive perks. There are several of them, but I would risk to say that the Far-Flung Fireworks is like the generic perk, since almost every player uses ranged weapons, even if your build is melee based. You surely use a ranged weapon every now and then, right? Anyway, at max rank, your dead targets have a 20% chance to explode and inflict area damage to all the surrounding enemies. It works like a weak grenade. The damage is not the best, but it's substantial to kill normal enemies. Moreover, and as to be expected, it works only in crowded locations with lots of enemies or during events with enemy waves, such as Radiation Rumble, Line in the Sand, or even a guided meditation, just some examples. It works really well during daily ops too, but only with uplink missions. However, I must admit the legendary special perks present a more competitive outcome. After all, such perks allow you to equip several extra normal perks and unlock a lot more value in the process. Still, if you are looking for a flat damage boost, the explosion perks should not be ignored. They are quite strong, it's just a pity there are better legendary perks out there, but this one is definitely worth using. I used it for a while, and I still use it every now and then. The Exterminator perk is one of those that does wonders against a specific type of enemy. In this case, it's insects, but what you may not know is that Marlurks are also part of the insect category for whatever reason. You may think the Exterminator perk is only useful in a few select occasions, but that's not exactly true. I mean, the wasteland is infested with bugs, such as cave crickets, blood bugs, ants, honeybees, and so many others. And of course, the entire Marluk family too. In fact, the mire and the cranberry bog are infested with such bugs, so this perk might be worth using if you're often adventuring into different regions of the wasteland. At rank 3, the Exterminator perk allows you to ignore 75% of any insect's armor. I did a few damage tests to compare, and versus weak targets, the difference is not very noticeable, but if you fight stronger enemies, such as a Marluk King or Queen, you can definitely see the difference. For example, it took me half the time to take down a Marluk King with the Exterminator rank 3 active. I was doing almost double the damage. Pretty decent, huh? When it comes to the Marluk Queen, well, the difference is abysmal, probably because this enemy has lots more defense. As shown, I took a Queen down in a matter of seconds with the Exterminator rank 3 active, but without the perk, well, I struggled a bit. My damage was like half per hit, well, compared to the perk active, if not less. Even the crits were half damage on her. So yeah, if you have some spear points under perception, make sure not to forget about this perk. It's quite useful and powerful too. Another perk that is particularly useful in many situations is the glow sight, again under perception. There are lots of interesting perks under perception, huh? Who would tell? Now, glow sight allows you to do extra damage to any glowing enemy, up to 60% more at rank 3, which is a considerable amount of damage. Just like the Exterminator perk though, this one won't be useful in every single fight, that's for sure, but there are plenty of glowing enemies around, so it's not like this perk would be totally useless either. There are lots of locations with fixed and dynamic spawns for glowing enemies, and 60% more damage does make a difference. I tested on a level 100 glowing Deathclaw, and the damage comparison is pretty evident. Anyway, there are plenty of events spawning glowing creatures as well. For instance, Radiation Rumble only spawns glowing ghouls, and Scorched Earth often spawns glowing enemies overall. Even the glowing Wendigos at the Colossal Problem seem to be affected by this perk, so it's definitely one to consider if you are looking forward to improving your damage output. Moving forward, one of my favorite perks for plain damage increase is the legendary perk Taking One for the Team. And that's because when you play in a team, even if it's just with another player, you can easily do 40% more damage to most enemies. I'm saying most, not all, because this perk's condition is not always possible to meet. When an enemy hits you though, you can inflict 40% more damage to that same enemy, and it applies to any weapon you use. Now, I know what you are probably thinking, especially if you are a bloodied build. The trick is to kill enemies before they can scratch you. Yes, that's true. I won't deny this perk has many flaws. It can also be challenging to benefit from this perk when fighting melee enemies, but on the other hand, this perk is very useful while fighting strong targets, like elites or bosses, because one hit from enemies equals 40% more damage for you. Don't forget the damage increase does not really expire on the target, and it also boosts your critical hits, not just your normal hit damage. I did a series of tests here against melee mole miners to exemplify, and as shown, before they hit me, my damage was usually below 100 damage, but after enemies hit me, that's a different story. My damage was going up to 40 to 50%. I totally recommend you to equip and rank up this perk if you often play in a team. Dealing 40% more damage to most of your enemies is a perk no player should skip. However, if you are a solo player or you spend most of your time in your private server alone, well, then you should exclude this perk from your list as obvious, because it's not going to bring you any benefit. It will be a wasted slot. Keep that in mind. Well, if you often use VATS, then you probably shouldn't miss Better Criticals, a luck perk that boosts all your VATS critical hits up to 40% more. I know, there's quite some implicit conditions in this perk on its own, but it's a flat damage boost for a lot of critical hits. I use it sometimes and you can definitely feel the difference, and the best part is that you only need to swap one luck perk and poof, magic. Suddenly, you're dealing up to 40% more damage with your VATS criticals. Anyhow, I find this perk the most useful during long fights, such as Queen or Earl fights, where you can spend a fair amount of time filling up your critical meter and dealing a fair amount of critical VATS hits too. Anyhow, if you are a solo player, this perk can really change the fight for you, especially when you are fighting elite enemies like a Sheep Squatch or a Marlow Queen, since you also get to fill up your crit bar and deal critical hits using VATS. Now, the luck category is a very busy one. There are lots of essential and useful perks there, so I don't blame you if you end up going for something else. Still, Better Criticals is a great perk and one of the best to improve your general damage output. As such, you should consider it, especially if you have some luck points to spare. We are halfway through the list already, and now it's time to talk about the Demolition Expert under Intelligence. It would be an act of ignorance if I didn't include this perk here. After all, it unlocks up to 60% more damage with all your explosive weapons. Now, it's a well-known fact that the most powerful endgame weapons include the explosive legendary effect, and all of them can benefit from this perk, which is fantastic. But it's not only legendary explosive weapons that can deal extra damage with the Demolition Expert. No. For instance, launcher weapons like a grenade launcher and all ghost weapons deal explosive damage by nature, so they are automatically classified as explosive despite not having the respective legendary effect. It's pretty crazy, right? So yeah, this perk is extremely powerful in endgame, and you can benefit from lots of extra damage with explosive weapons. For example, my ghost shotgun gets about 100 more damage with the rank 5 perk, as shown in the footage. In my view, this perk is a must-have for every high-level character, unless of course your weapon collection is not the best and you are missing the explosive effect in most of them. Also, if you never use gauss or launcher weapons, then it's probably better to save your slot and equip something else. If not, then you know what to do. Rank it up to 5 and use it at all times, because trust me, the damage boost is incredible. The way is forward, and the next damage perk in the list is the Tenderizer under Charisma. This perk might not be as powerful as most of the perks I mentioned so far, but the trigger conditions are much wider, which makes it a perfect candidate to boost your flat damage. With the rank 3 Tenderizer, you can deal 10% more damage to any enemy you want, but keep in mind, this 10% damage boost only lasts for 10 seconds after your first attack. It also has a short cooldown, so that flat damage boost clearly doesn't come without a cost or a downside. But that's okay, because most enemies in the Wasteland will go down under 10 seconds, so by the time the buff expires, you should have defeated any potential threats, excluding a few select elite enemies and bosses, of course. Talking about them though, the Tenderizer perk is also very effective against bosses, because you can regularly benefit from a 10% extra damage while fighting them. I know there's a short cooldown and everything, but despite that, this is a very strong perk and one you shouldn't miss if you want to do more damage. Alright, now we are entering the top 3 damage perks in game right now, the most powerful and essential ones to use if you want to deal increased damage. And as to be expected, the agility perk Adrenaline is one of the very best. Plus, it's like a one-fit-all type of perks. It can benefit basically any build in any playstyle. You can unlock up to 60% more damage with the rank 5 Adrenaline, where each kill grants you 10% more damage up to 30 seconds per kill, and it all stacks. That's the beauty of this perk. In general, this perk is amazing when you are farming locations with dozens of enemies, because the more you kill, the more damage you can unlock with this lovely perk. Besides crowded locations, this perk works like a charm during most tier 3 and tier 4 events. Radiation Rumble, Guided Meditation, One Violent Night, Line in the Sand, and so many others, where plenty of enemy waves spawn, and of course, during boss fights too, since they often spawn lots of enemies as well. Anyhow, this perk has been part of my builds almost since their release days, and I never remove it. It's one of those core pieces you just don't want to let go, and you shouldn't, because it's one of the very best perks in 76. Is there a better way to boost your damage than to just equip Bloody Mess? It's one of the most straightforward and gruesome perks in the entire game. At rank 3, it increases all your damage output by 15%, no matter what gear or enemies you fight. You always get that flat 15% damage increase, and that's it. Now, I know 15% extra damage is not amazing, it's okay. It matters, of course, but it's not a huge improvement. However, it's a very consistent and steady one. As such, I highly recommend everyone, veterans and new players, to rank up and use Bloody Mess under Luck. If, of course, you feel like your build could take a little tweak in terms of damage. And remember, every little bit helps. 15% here, 10% there, you know, altogether at the end of the day, it really makes a difference, and that's how you deal more damage in general, by stacking up and pairing damage perks. I bet you have been wondering which damage perk I placed at the top of the list. Well, it's no more no less than Concentrated Fire. It's quite curious because this perception perk doesn't exactly increase your damage directly, but it allows you to target specific enemy parts. In humanoid enemies, you can select their torso, arms, legs, and the head too, which is obviously the weakest spot. For robots and turrets, there are also weak parts. They are a bit different, but you can still select them, so that's amazing. Needless to say that hitting a limb will inflict way less damage than targeting the head, for example. I did some quick tests here to exemplify versus ghouls and super mutants, and as shown, if I target my enemies' heads, I can literally one-hit everything. But if I switch to a limb, well, that's another story. I normally need 2 hits per kill. So yes, Concentrated Fire can basically double your usual damage, but not because it's increasing your damage directly. It's more like it's concentrating all your fire power into one specific spot instead of scattering the damage across the body, which, you know, has different defenses, and you can also miss part of the hit and so on. When this happens, you can obviously one-hit everything since VATS hardly misses. I know some weapons are a bit buggy with VATS, like the Gauss shotgun, but in general, the safest way to avoid missed hits is by performing them through VATS. Now, whether you have a stamina build or not, I highly recommend you guys to play with Concentrated Fire because it gives you a choice, and this choice can include lots of extra damage. Plus, even if you cannot afford to use VATS all the time, using it every now and then is more than enough to ensure you always come out of a fight alive and victorious. In my view, Concentrated Fire is definitely one of the best perks and most versatile ones in 76, and possibly the strongest one in terms of damage. And for all of that, I had to place it as number 1. Alright, these are my top 10 damage perks to use and abuse no matter what level or what build you might have. I don't think Bethesda is adding new perks anytime soon, so this list might remain updated for months to come. I hope you enjoyed, and most importantly, I hope you were able to improve your build, damage-wise of course. Now, thanks again to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. If you want to check their browser, go ahead and check the link right below the video. It's free to download, by the way. Now, that's it for the time being. I am Marta Branco. Thanks for having me, and as usual, a huge shout out to all my supporters. You guys are the best. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and feel free to leave a like to let YouTube know you enjoyed. Well then, that's it. I will see you all very, very soon in the next video. Until then, take care. Adios. Bye bye.